Welcome to another Answers in Jubilees produced by the God Culture. Can you believe we are already on episode 40 of 52, even ahead of schedule? Only 12 left, and the tough choice really for us is which ones to cover in these last videos. It's amazing. Answers in 2nd Esdras is also, I think, episode 20 we've done now of 26. And don't worry, we're already working on the next books. There is so much in this book of Jubilees, though. And we have taken a few of these teachings to expand the Jubilees narrative, such as we're doing here with these videos, which are actually making this 3 videos on Sodom, because this is super important. And the next video, we're really going to deal more with the purpose, and you're going to get this. This is amazing. We should all have known this all along. So we want to prove this topic out, from Genesis and other Bible books, as well as history, geography, science, etc., because it deserves it. And no, none of the other videos out there on YouTube are doing it. We'll cover a couple in the next video, and they're completely off, way off. In our last video, we covered the history of the area known as Sodom, Gomorrah, and surrounding cities, known as being located in the Valley of Sodom, which sure sounds like the plural of Sodom even. The cities of the plain, and it is surprising how many supposed scholars don't seem to know what a valley is, nor a plain. They just forget it. Oh, it didn't really say that. Well, why? Because it's allegory, right? So you can change words and meanings to mean whatever you want. That's how you write your own Bible, basically. See, these are the same. They try to place Lot's wife, as even Josephus did, though false, likely as well, as they can't seem to read the story. They have a pillar of salt up in the mountains that has to be down in the valley. So that's not a minor discrepancy. That's just stupid. They don't read the story and apply it. We see this in Bible scholarship throughout most of the things we've covered at this point, and it riddles the whole paradigm. The whole paradigm is really hopeless in terms of truly understanding what plain English of the English Bible says. Yet, that is where their claimed statue is, which is merely a rock formation, and probably she would have had to be a giant to appear that large, which is rather nonsense as well. Now, for science, even reported by the Smithsonian Institute in their magazine, which we'll cover here, what happened in this event. And how can it be that thousands of years later, you'll see the scientific evidence remains to this day, and it is overwhelming indeed. Let's float into the Dead Sea of Sodom. Let's get right to the science of the destruction. What was it? And can we find evidence of this? This will shock some who may not have researched this. Science affirms the Bible on this, and this we will prove. In the next video, we will address some phony, erroneous interpretations of this science by those calling themselves scientists. Yet they are merely scoffers of willing ignorance. They know nothing, and they can't even read the results because they don't want to. See, that's what Pharisees do. Get that? Now, Genesis is not some old book of fairy tales based on oral legends passed down, yet much of scholarship tends to look at it that way. And it's amazing, because that's just completely stupid. The contents of Genesis were recorded as they happened and unfolded in the time of the heavenly tablets since creation itself. There is an angel of high authority who has such role, and he, according to not just the book of Jubilees, well laid out and defined many times, but also Paul and Luke, received the law or Torah by the disposition of angels, or an angel shared the heavenly record with Moses. That's what happened on Sinai. That's how it worked. Yes, the commandments and other parts of the law were written by the very finger of Yahuwah. Yet they forgot that too and claim it passed away in modern times. Absolutely illiterate to Scripture. But no, this is not just Genesis. Yahusha himself said it rained fire and brimstone from heaven. Oh wait, from where? In the next video we're going to cover this even more, because that's how we're going to end this whole thing. This is powerful, and this is important. This isn't just some fire from the sky and meteor, which couldn't even work, and doesn't anyway, in their own theory, which they realize. And they throw out their own theory by making up fiction to replace what could be fact if it were fact, but is not fact. How about that? This is heavenly fire, or the fire that consumes completely and eternally, and you're going to see this. Yahushua will employ it again in the same way on the day of final judgment. Wow. Man cannot build anything which can withstand this fire. When you see the temperatures involved, based on actual science, this becomes very evident. This destruction is complete and final. What is brimstone? Well, it's not salt, but sulfur specifically. Now, you can look this up in most Bible dictionaries, which will say the same thing. So, do we find sulfur in and around the Dead Sea? Oh, en masse, in fact. Look at this. Let's start with a little cosmetic thing with just the mud here. Sulfur is actually the third most common mineral in sea salt, and certainly present in the Dead Sea, because that's what this is about. Now, for some science, and this is going to be incredible. From the Smithsonian Institute, their magazine, we cover this in this video. We could use several sources because this is well recorded. There's scientific journals, which is really what this is citing. So you can find this in many ways. The support's so overwhelming. We could do a series just on Sodom. Why couldn't anyone, except Lot, though, with forewarning and assistance of angels, escape this disaster? So it must be sudden. Something is very unique about this. This had to be an immediate destruction and all-encompassing, which is why we find the residual damage of neighboring errors. There are no wounded here. They're gone. Of course, they have the space rock guess here, which is extremely poor, but the science is accurate. That's not science. It's just poor interpretation of science. That's what they represent. Right in the headline, this even was more powerful than Hiroshima, they say, based on the scientific evidence. That will vet as true. The destruction of Tal el-Haman, a Bronze Age city in the Jordan Valley, by an exploding comet or meteor may have inspired the biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Notice, may, it doesn't, because there is no meteor. Didn't happen. They can't prove it happened. This evidence is not evidence of a meteor, which is why they don't find a crater. Duh. Thus no meteor. So they have to say, oh, no, it exploded in the sky 2.5 miles up. Yeah, right. Now, then they say a new study, what's that word? Suggests. See, this is what we call science today. It's what we call scholarship today. It's utterly stupid because they never commit to anything. Why? Because they don't prove anything. In order to prove this event, you go back to the historical account of it, which comes from the Bible. That's the origin of the Sodom and Gomorrah narrative. That's it. You don't ignore that and call yourself a scientist. That's just ridiculous. And then say, oh, well, but that's not my discipline. Well, why? Why isn't it part of your discipline? Your discipline is really ignorant and operating in willing ignorance if it's not. You should absorb every material on it before trying to interpret. That's the way it should work. Notoriously sinful city, Sodom and Gomorrah's devastation by sulfur, brimstone, and fire is recorded in the book of Genesis, according to Encyclopedia Britannica. You have to cite Encyclopedia Britannica in order to quote Genesis. You talk about stupid. These guys are just completely illiterate. You don't read the Bible or any original historical source through an encyclopedia. Are you stupid or what, people? I mean, these guys really are. It's ridiculous. But see, they dare not quote the Bible. They're so afraid to quote the Bible in Smithsonian Magazine that they have to quote the Bible through Encyclopedia Britannica. Absolutely, illiterately stupid. At the time of the disaster, around 1650 BC, now they'll also show 1900, so they don't know the date, and this date is not accurate. Tal el-Haman was the largest of three major cities in the valley. Actually, it probably was much smaller than Sodom and the five cities because they're the ones that really are the story here. This is a residual effect. We'll show you. This is not even a direct hit, and that's why this, even though we can learn a lot from it, this is not Sodom. It likely acted as the region's political center. That's a bad guess, a very poor guess, because the political center was Sodom, Gomorrah, the five cities. They are the metropolitan area, and this was not one of them, because we know where they are. We covered that last video. They're the cities of the plain. They are buried in the Dead Sea. That's where they are. They're there. Reports, Ariel Marston of the Jerusalem Post, of course, well noted for propaganda. Combine the three metropolises boasted a population of around 50,000. Sodom and Gomorrah and the five cities, likely even larger than that. Tal el-Haman's mud brick building stood up to 5 stories tall. Well, that's pretty impressive for that era, no doubt. But again, this isn't Sodom. Sodom would have been even more sophisticated. But it's all gone. None is left. Over the years, archaeologists examining the structure's ruins have found evidence of a sudden high-temperature destructive event. And that is a residual event, not even the direct hit, for that matter. For instance, pottery pieces that were melted on the outside but untouched inside. Wow. Imagine the kind of heat that will take. We'll show you. The new paper published in the journal Natural Scientific Reports examined possible causes of the devastation based on the archaeological record. The research, but ignoring, by the way, the actual historical record, which is stupid. The researchers concluded that warfare, a fire, a volcanic eruption, or an earthquake were unlikely culprits. Well, we would agree, because the Bible says it was none of those things, as these events couldn't have produced heat intense enough to cause the melting recorded at the scene. Now, that is the key point. What could? We'll cover that. That left a space rock, if you're stupid, as the most likely cause. Nah, dumb. That is not anything but ridiculous speculation, because they don't believe the Bible, and they don't even read the historical account of things to add it in and test it. They just don't bother. Even Earth's sky and other sites actually show some of the superheated elements found. Here's a picture of some. Bear in mind, these are found in the residual cities, not the direct impact zone of fire and brimstone from heaven, which devours everything completely. They're missing that. Kind of hard to miss it, but they miss it nevertheless. They found diamondoids, which were created by intense high heat and pressure. Imagine how much more the direct hit was. Wow. Now that's more consistent to the Bible account, which fits the Bible better than the meteor, which does not fit. Again, there is no impact crater, so there was no meteor. That is bogus, it is false, and just fiction. They're the ones making up fiction, not the Bible, because their science proves the Bible and proves them wrong. Also found spherules, or little round balls of melted sand. Imagine that, melting the sand into balls. And again, this is not even the direct impact zone. Remember that. It even melted metal. Wow. Back to the Smithsonian report, and here we have, really, their admission. Because experts failed to find a crater at the site, which, in plain English, means they well know there was no meteor, because no crater. They attributed, or better termed, made up in fraud, the damage to an airburst created when a meteor or comet traveled through the atmosphere at high speed. How do we even call these scientific articles? They're stupid. Is the atmosphere located on the Dead Sea? Well, 2.5 miles up even? No, that's stupid. This did not explode on entry. They even know that, because in order to make the math work, they have to go 2.5 miles up. Well, sorry, it doesn't work. In fact, this would have been just above the ground 2.5 miles, which is not supported in any sense. It is made up fraud to try to save a bad theory, which is ridiculous, because they don't wish to believe the Bible, willing ignorance. So it would have exploded about 2.5 miles above the city, they say. No, it didn't. In a blast 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb used at Hiroshima. Now, perhaps that part is true based on the science, though their interpretation certainly not from a meteor. The problem is they can't explain it, because this fire came from heaven and burned so hot they have no explanation known to man, other than you got to go back to the original source, the Bible. And how hot was this? Air temperatures rapidly rose above 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, by the way, that is supported by science, and we're going to show you, we've shown you a few of those that require those kinds of temperatures. So yes, that would be true, meteor not. Clothing and wood immediately burst into flames. Swords, spears, mud bricks, and pottery began to melt. And you're looking for archaeology of what? Think. Almost immediately, the entire city was on fire. Oh, much more than that. Destroyed, consumed, gone. Indeed, but not from a meteor. They cannot prove ever existed, and would have to explode before hitting the ground 2.5 miles in the sky, which is nowhere near the entry into the atmosphere and nowhere near the ground, which has no crater. It just is plain nonsense. In light of the massive detail of the Bible account, this really is the most ridiculous theory imaginable. Yet they ignore that history, proven as fact now by the very science they reinterpret in ignorance. Recorded for thousands of years and relevant to this day. Proven in actual science. Wow. However, this city to which they refer is not Sodom. It's not even in the right place. I mean, it also likely was much larger, Sodom was, than this one. This is probably a much smaller city. They say this one, this is Tal El Haman still, was the largest of its age. Well, that's because it's the only one you can find. You won't find any archaeology of Sodom. It's gone. It's consumed with fire from heaven. That is not a joke, folks. It is fact. Also, the fact archaeology of buildings, gates, foundations are there to prove it is not even the impact zone. That was a residual hit from leftovers down there and also to the south of the Dead Sea. The actual destruction is right there in and under the Dead Sea. That's fact. We proved that last video. Now, they estimate this city at 8,000 in population, and Sodom was likely far larger than that. What they also don't really tell you is these basically sample of superheated sand, sulfur, as well, etc., are found over a 200-mile area, not just that city, and certainly not originating there. So it's not all about that city, but of course they make it all about that city. Again, they would have to dig into the Dead Sea to really know, and no doubt that will probably never happen. Why? Because it doesn't support Kabbalah science, which is what they represent. As to why mass bodies, or really bones, have not been found, think about it. It's obvious. Even bones would hardly survive such intense heat at 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. It melted metal, even. And they were not just torn apart, as this says. That's ridiculous. They were burned. They were melted to the bone at this temperature, and likely even more. There's nothing to discuss there. They also found quartz formed from sand, which requires incredible pressure and intense heat. They mention the Dead Sea, but they don't even realize the Bible says it did not exist yet, but was formed by this event. Read it. We covered that last video. Go back and watch. They don't even try to read. They don't even try to understand, because it's not what they're doing here. This is a fluff theory to lead you away from Yahuwah. That's their intent. Then they do what they always do. They lie. They claim this was an oral story passed through generations. That's the Bible, right? Of course. Changed it along the way, kind of like when you share a rumor in a circle, and it becomes something different by the end, and that's supposed to prove something. No, this is ridiculous. And then they say, but its actual origin was a meteor, see, and that's what spawned the Bible story. They're stupid. That's ridiculous when you have an historical record of such detail which matches the science, and you ignore it. The Bible was not oral legend, by the way, fabricated by Moses. Nonsense. It was on record in heaven, written down, and passed in exactness to Moses in every detail. And in this case, especially, they don't even prove it wrong, but prove the Bible record is accurate. And theirs, they even prove, and they even know and admit, is made up fiction of fools. They even note Abraham's observation where he saw the smoke rise as a furnace over the land. Again, not a meteor, but matches the Bible account. But again, they do so by quoting it through the Encyclopedia Britannica and others. See, they don't read the source. They read commentary of the source. They read bad scholarship of the source. Why? Because they can better bend it to their desire where they're rewriting the Bible. So you got to read the actual story and understand it, and then you can't be deceived. That's the way it works. But see, their intent is to deceive, so they ignore that part, of course. They admit they have no evidence. Tal el-Haman and Sodom are even the same city because, well, they are not. We already proved that in the last video. They don't even bother to read the Bible, which is the origin of the account of Sodom, to maybe test that. I mean, isn't that what you should do, Smithsonian? I mean, why don't you grow up and learn how to research? Because clearly you don't know. And yet you write articles and put them out there and call it science. No, it's stupid. Claiming to represent a story, ignoring its origin, can only be accurately termed stupid. There's no other word for it. Then for them to claim the Genesis account matches a cosmic outburst, it's even more inept. They don't even know the account, which says fire and brimstone rained from the sky. That doesn't even fit the meteor. No. Even Messiah says so himself. Right? And that was the first century, basically. So why do we allow these idiots to teach our children? That's the real question, because they don't know what they're talking about, and they clearly have no foundation, and they don't care to have that foundation. That foundation is absent the Bible, and they take it out completely, and that's just stupidity. No, the Genesis account only fits their cosmic outburst? Well, yeah, if you change it and make it into something else, which is what they have to do, which is why they won't read the original account. No, they have to go and take one that's already been leavened and leavened again and say, oh, see, it matches this leavened account. Yeah, stupid. Yet you don't get to rewrite history to fit your stupid theory to try to make it work. And we see this in science all the time. Grow up, dunderheads. Again, even as late as the 1800s, the church, or at least some well knew Sodom, was not north, but within the Dead Sea, with the other cities of the plain, just as Josephus and Pliny the Elder, we're going to cover in the next video, place it right there. And the Bible indisputably does. This was never a mystery, and it is no longer. We're dealing with a modern paradigm which has manipulated what was known and lost now because of their incoherent, complacent, non-research that absolutely should earn them a place in the end destruction as it will. So here's a basic version of the science. We didn't get into too much. We didn't want to overwhelm anyone because all of us can understand this. They well know this science affirms the ancient history from the Bible many times over. What they do is ignore that story. That's how they do it. And then they make up their own and say, see, it was not your God, Yahuwah. It couldn't be. No. It's our made-up fiction instead because, well, that's more probable than your fiction because your God is fiction. That's their point. And that's what this is all about. That's what drives this. The problem is they make themselves stupid in doing so. The science fits the Bible and their theory of a meteor, that isn't a meteor, is so inept. I mean, to even claim, well, first they admit, no, the meteor did not land there. So that didn't happen. Well, because there is no crater, we know that. That's observable, right? So they know they're wrong. Yet they can think, but only so far. Thus, there was no meteor period. No airburst. Nonsense. But they use a 1 in a trillion possibility, also never actually proven in science, to speculate so they can still conclude, well, see, it wasn't your God. See, that's what this is all about. It was not Yahuwah. It cannot be. Right, idiots. Why not just say a spaceship did it? Because that's what you're saying. It's the same kind of fiction that you're just making up. See, their regard for ancient man in their evolutionary mentality of stupid, which is proven wrong for many years, even in Darwin's own words, as his theory never met his own test for success. He failed. Man is not evolving. We are de-evolving. Losing scientifically confirmed DNA information every generation. We're losing years and health. Yeah, sure, we are not getting better, folks, because we have modern sorcery or pharmakia or medicine, which in most cases doesn't actually cure, but prolongs the illness, devastating families. Yeah, sure, you live longer. Of course, everyone wants to keep their loved ones as long as we can indeed, no doubting that, and you can't blame them. But see, what they're doing is they prey on that, as these sorcerers always have. And by the way, how does the harlot of Babylon and her cohorts fool the world? What are they doing in the end times? Well, by their sorceries. That's what Revelation says. We're there. We are going to break out one last video on Sodom next, and this is good. We'll deal with the purpose of this event. Some of the other claims out there as well, more history and geography that really nails this down, and some comments that have been sent in as well, because we love those, and it's awesome when people are out there doing their own research, even beyond what we've covered. Let's finish this and solve this mystery once and for all. The ancients knew this. Why don't modern scholars? Thank you for watching another Answers in Jubilees. We have over 350 videos on this channel, many just as profound, with some 50 or so in Tagalog for Filipinos and narration, now 6 in Spanish narration to start. We recently uploaded all our content to Rumble, and Utreon is processing right now and almost done. There's over 200 videos there already. I think Rumble has them all now. 2 alternatives to YouTube, so you can watch there if you choose. They're backup channels. We're not looking for any to go viral, but they're there just in case, and they're there for anyone that wants them. We also have a new podcast available on our website and most pod servers worldwide. Check it out at thegodculture.com. Just click podcast in the upper right. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications of new uploads. Join our email list, as YouTube, just forgets to notify often, and we will notify you ourselves. Just go to thegodculture.com and fill in the pop-up with your email address. That's it. And friend us on Facebook at The God Culture, space original. And as well, we have an alternative now, Parler, a Facebook alternative, up and functional. So you can also join there, or if you prefer to do that instead, or if you're one of those who tried to friend us on Facebook and Facebook won't allow you, yeah, we saw that in a conference where many could not. Amazing. We now have 5 books published internationally, being read in over 100 countries. With our new release now available, Rest, the 400-plus page case for Sabbath. Just go to ophirinstitute.com for all the links for your area for all of our books. Thank you for watching. Now, always remember, prove all things for yourself. Yah bless to everyone. The Book of Jubilees, the Torah calendar, named by the temple priests in Qumran as the source of the exact determination of how to keep Torah's calendar in the Damascus document. Yes, they called it Torah and used it as such. This book renders the very first map of the world, the most ancient geography in all of history. Jubilees, also known as the Book of Division, as Noah partitions the entire earth to his 3 sons, finds the Garden of Eden in the Philippines, pinpoints the seat of Gog of Magog's power, demonstrates continental divides originate with Noah, and much more. It is the second witness to Genesis in Torah and concurs. It tests as Torah, and we encourage you to review this full test for yourself in the beginning of this book. It was the priests who were exiled from the temple who lived in Qumran, known in Bible times as Bethabara, where Messiah was baptized, and John the Baptist of temple priestly caste lived and operated. As these were his fellow Levite priests exiled from the temple, who continued to keep Scripture there, as well as operate a functioning compound modeled in part after the temple. This is the only historic library of precedents for the Old Testament canon in ancient history, yet explained away in willing ignorance, just as 2 Peter 3 warned. Based on the R.H. Charles translation from the Ethiopic, this book will enlighten, and its revelation will rock your world. As all 50 chapters appear in this book with curated and edited margin notes, in large print Bible format, easy to read. This 288-page quality paperback has a high-resolution section of maps that represent the world's oldest map by Noah. Read it and test it for yourself, and you will likely find, as we have, this book is inspired, even canon, in history. Available free worldwide in eBook, or purchase a print copy today on Shopee Philippines or Amazon internationally. Just go to bookofjubilees.org, and the links are there for your area. We also offer bundle pricing with our other books in the Philippines. Our books are already expanding now, being read in 52 countries and more than half of the provinces in the Philippines. Join thousands who are finding this useful in their lives.